final quarter begins right now.
Yeah, welcome into the final quarter here on CBS 8 Plus. That is Karthik Venkatraman. I am Jake Garriani, and we are going to start out talking about those San Diego State Aztecs. We begin on the hardwood. They pulled off the big victory over Utah Valley. Earlier in the season, I would have looked right past this game, but after that loss to Troy, you can't really look past anybody. They got back from that Players Era Festival. Really, I think, I don't know if you'd call it a disappointment. You got blown out of the water by Michigan.
Who blew out everybody.
Exactly. you lost by 40, but Michigan's beaten everybody by 40. Then you get a really nice win over Oregon. You lead against Baylor at one point, and you drop that. You come back home to Viejas Arena. A hard-fought, a one-point game at the half against Utah Valley. Huge night off the bench for a lot of guys. 59 points for the Aztecs off the bench. What did you make, Karthik, of that win over the Wolverines?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just how well the bench performed. And I mean, B.J. Davis has just been awesome for the last several games. I think other than the first two games, he scored in double digits in every game since. B.J. Davis has been quite the spark off the bench. Brian Dutcher talking about B.J. Davis and said, you can't put him in the starting lineup because when he comes off the bench, he gives you a different rhythm. And that's exactly what he's been able to do. So that's been good. Tay Simmons has come up in some big games. His rebounding's been good. His ability to score, I think he's still trying to figure things out on the defensive end, much like the rest of the Aztecs, so they're figuring it out there. And then when I look at the starters, because 59 points were scored by the bench of the 77, I believe, that they scored, the second straight game in which Reese Dixon Waters, Magoon Guath, and Miles Bird weren't great. Miles Bird had to get some IVs in him, so that probably makes it a little difficult. And then Magoon Guath still getting back into the flux of things. But those are the three solidified starters in this lineup. Want to continue to see more production out of them as we keep moving forward. And I'm sure that will be the case as we get to conference play.
Yeah, Reese Dixon Waters only made 3 buckets, I believe, but 2 really clutch ones there at the end. You're starting to see Brian Dutcher try and find some form with all this perceived depth that this team has, and there's still a long way to go with that. You know, it feels like this team is really still figuring out a lot of things as they start to head into this season, but you're really running out of time. That loss to Troy really trimmed down their margin of error. In fact, it's something Brian Dutcher talked about, among other things, after that victory over Utah Valley. Take a listen.
I tell him, am I any different after a loss than I am after a win? No. I just come steady every day, and we have a steady program because we just work to get better. There's no highs and lows. Although we're disappointed when we lose, we're able to put it behind us quickly and move on to the next game. Because you don't want to sit there, like Tay said, and dwell on Troy. We all know Troy was – if we beat Troy and then we lose 2 in Vegas, we're like, oh, wow, okay, well, Michigan beat everyone by 40. We beat Oregon, and then we were ahead against Baylor in the second half, competitive game, and everything's fine. But the Troy loss just magnifies everything. So it puts more pressure to win games, and that's a good thing. At some point in the season, you're going to feel pressure. So we were feeling a little bit early, you know, trying to get our team better. And whether the outcome of these games changed or not, we have to get better, and we know that. And I thought we made a step in the right direction today.
You look at the non-conference and not wanting to stumble anymore. It's still one more quality non-conference win still on the table potentially there with getting a win against Arizona here in a little bit. So if they're able to pull that and then get into conference play, I think this team will start heating up, as we've talked about. They had the depth. I still think they're trying to figure out where their pieces go. As soon as they figure it out, I feel pretty good about their odds moving forward.
And speaking of that game against Arizona, it's one of their upcoming games. Here is a look at their schedule they do have coming up against Lamar, and then they open Mountain West play against Air Force. Then they'll take that break in tournament action against Arizona, Whittier next, and then back into the Mountain West against San Jose State, Boise State, and Nevada. The thing about playing in the Mountain West for the Aztecs, Karthik, is that they really don't have a lot of make-up room, right? It's hard to improve your schedule a ton, rather your results a ton when you're taking on the likes of Boise State and Nevada. And no slight at those teams, but the Aztecs are the cream of the Mountain West. They are the best team in the conference, and sometimes when you drop some of those lesser games like the Troy, or you can't get those massive wins over a Michigan or a Houston like they did last year, you're really working on the margins when it comes to trying to improve your resume from the Mountain West.
For sure. And the Mountain West is maybe a lot of people are saying a little down compared to previous years, but I still think it'll be a multi-bid conference like it has been the past couple of years. And so we're talking about probably 2-3 teams make it. And, if San Diego State were able to go win the regular season title, or, obviously if they win the conference title, they're automatically in. But if they do one of those things in conference play, I think they're definitely in the NCAA tournament. They've picked up one quality win. They could pick up another as we go. And, maybe as we get farther down, the team surprises in the Mountain West and win against Boise ends up being a quality type win. And that helps out San Diego State as far as their resume goes. I don't think their resume is going to look terrible. We don't know what Troy's going to be. Maybe they go out and win their conference, and that doesn't even look like a bad loss. So you never know what's going to happen. Only time will tell, but we'll kind of see how things go here.
And you make a great point. The Mountain West has elevated a lot recently when it comes to basketball. They've gotten a ton of teams in the tournament. Not very successful in the tournament aside from the Aztecs, but they have gotten a lot of teams into the tournament. The play is a bit of a step up than it has been maybe in years past, so that could also help out the Aztecs. I feel a little nervous about the basketball team just because it feels like they just can't get all these pieces together early on. But I also just trust Brian Dutcher to figure it out. He has year in and year out. I don't see being any different this time around. Any more thoughts on the basketball team before we move on to the football team? You ready to talk some football?
They have to solidify the defense on the basketball team. It's looking good on the football team. We'll talk about them here in a little bit. But they can solidify the defense on the basketball team. That's their staple. That's where they'll get everything going again. We'll see if they can figure that part out consistently moving forward.
Let's head over to the gridiron where the Aztecs football team, what do you want to say? It was a tough loss, a great game at New Mexico. They had an opportunity to not only punch their ticket to the Mountain West title game, but host it. Unfortunately, they come up short against the Lobos in New Mexico. And now you're looking at a team that had an incredible turnaround, 3-9 to 9-3, a chance to win 10 in whatever bowl game they're invited into. But there's still that sense of disappointment, right? Because they had it all in front of them. Because at one point we were talking about college football playoff with this team, Karthik, and now you're like, no, we're not even playing in the Mountain West title game. A bit of disappointment. But let's not forget what a turnaround this season was for Sean Lewis in the Scarlet and Black.
Yeah, first, let's talk about the turnaround because that's where we should start.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone expected this out of this team. They weren't picked to finish as high as in the conference, and they were right there looking at computer metrics, data, and analytics to see if they would get into their conference title game. No one thought that was going to happen. I think it was a great coaching job. As I mentioned a second ago, the defense was fantastic this season and really helped them get to the point that they are one of the best ranked nationally, and I think all of those things are stuff to be applauded for. The things that maybe you don't applaud as much or you're scratching your head about or you're maybe banging up your head against a wall if you're a diehard Aztecs fans wondering this is how did they blow 2 opportunities to get to their conference title game and potentially that college football playoff spot? Even if they had beaten New Mexico, there was a crazy path that still potentially could have put them in. I don't think it would have. But, there was an opportunity where they could have been one of the 5 ranked highest power conference teams had they kind of taken care of their own business and gotten an automatic bid. But alas, this is where we are. That Hawaii loss was tough. Not getting the job done against New Mexico, giving themselves a chance in their Mountain West Conference championship game that they would have hosted at home is tough. And these are the things when we talk about programs defining and building themselves into teams people really care about here in San Diego. We talk about it all the time. You got to put a winner out on the field. And they won. Sure, they won. But the only statement win that they really had all season long was Boise State against their backup quarterback at home. Huh?
Cal as well.
Cal was definitely a statement win. Definitely. That was a great looking performance. But I'm talking about like when you're talking about statement wins for this team, I think you get it a lot of the times done in conference and winning in conference because ultimately that's really what matters for these mid-major quote unquote type teams as you kind of get or group of 5 type teams as you move forward. And so for them to not capture some of that stuff that I really think could have vaulted their fandom for years to come if they had gotten to where we potentially could have slated or expected them to go because of maybe faults with the offense or whatever it might be, we're talking about this as I think just as much if it was a great opportunity to build something for the future, a missed opportunity because they didn't get the job fully done.
No doubt this season is a huge step for this program, getting them back to that type of squad they were before, but in a different way under Sean Lewis. And it's massive stepping stone, and it kind of took a further step the other day. They announced the early signing class. Sean Lewis says it's going to be a top 60 class, outbidding some of those soon-to-be conference opponents in the Pac-12, taking players away from P4 schools. It was what sounds like a great early signing class, and it looks like Sean Lewis is set to build on what is a great year. Look, this can be a 10-win team. That is nothing to gawk at. That is a very, very impressive season. Sean Lewis reflected on it in his press conference when they were talking about that early signing class. Here is the head coach.
Just incredibly proud of the players, incredibly proud of the staff, incredibly proud of the work that everyone did, putting all this together, and the work that was done day in and day out. Can't thank the community enough for their support and the way that they encouraged us, supported us, competed with us, and can't wait for them to continue to elevate with us as we go forward into the future and pack Snapdragon Stadium and create an environment that is a true competitive advantage for us each and every single time we step on that field.
Sean Lewis obviously trying to be nice there. Snapdragon Stadium was the furthest thing from a home field advantage for the Aztecs all season long, even though they put a winner on the field, even though they had a chance at the college football playoff, looking far out in the Mountain West Championship game. Still, nobody showed up to these games. We've talked about ticket prices. We've talked about why. Whatever it is, they got to figure that out next season, because we said long time over and over and over, all you got to do is win. They'll show up. They didn't show up, and they won.
Well, I think that's the thing, is it's about not only winning, but it's about building hype around your winning. Why have everyone gathered around the Padres and so into them? Because they've just built so much hype around their organization. Why is so many people, and why is San Diego FC selling out all of their games? Because in their first season, they built so much hype around them. As much as it is about winning, it's about building hype. And in the times in which San Diego State could have built hype, it felt like they just weren't able to. And that's why where we are. I think people will care more about this program moving forward. But as I said, missed opportunity for a chance to really build something deeper and stronger moving forward.
And there's really no excuse. When you look across the street and you see what SDFC is doing at Snapdragon Stadium, they will show up. They will. It's just you got to figure out why. You got to fix the ticket prices, all those things that they definitely know they need to work on. Let's stay with football, but move into the National Football League. Karthik, I put together a little something special. You have not seen this yet. This is my synopsis of what has been a wild season in the National Football League. I don't know what to make of it. I'm going to let you watch this and see if you think I'm right on point, if I'm way off, or if you don't know what to make of it.
We'll see.
Check it out.
We are now headed into week 14 of the NFL season. We should have a lot of clarity at this point. Those same old obvious teams pulling away from the pack, but instead, this year's more upside down than that time I went skydiving with a big beard. The Bears, yeah, those Bears are the best team in the NFC. The Broncos are 10-2, and everyone is chasing the Patriots? I mean, what is this, 2016 again? And remember that time that this train wreck of a team fired that guy? And how's that going for the Titans? Somehow, this deep into the year, we have more questions than answers. Like, will Aaron Rodgers actually survive the season? Is Shadur Sanders Cleveland's savior? Are the Chiefs, Lions, and Ravens actually just mediocre? Some things we do know, not even Pete Carroll can save the silver and black. The Chargers have more jersey combinations than healthy linemen, and quarterbacks for that matter. The Saints, Vikings, Jets, Falcons, Cardinals, Commanders, and Giants all stink. The Bengals could have prime Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison on their team and would still lose 10 games with that defense. There is plenty to still work out, though, in the final 4 weeks. Things like, are the Panthers and Jaguars actually ferocious wildcats? Or will they turn to cute, cuddly kittens when all is said and done? And speaking of transformations, has Danny Dimes reverted back to Daniel Jones? Will the Eagles find their true form, or did Dallas put them in their final resting place? And speaking of the Cowboys, what are you? Maybe even throw Miami into that category too. Like, are you a terrible team or kind of okay? I don't know. Can Houston's defense carry them to the postseason? Can Baker cook? Can Love bring Lombardi back to Titletown? And will Josh Allen finally get the Bills to the big game? And then there's the NFC West. The Rams are for real with a future Hall of Fame quarterback. The Seahawks can flat out ball, and the 49ers have fought through a ton of injuries and still have 9 wins. There you go. You're all caught up on a season you can't quantify, you can't measure, and you surely can't explain in a single sportscast. But here I am, just yapping again.
All right, I had a lot of questions in there, a lot of yapping going on, Karthik. What do you make of this season in the NFL? Because it is wild.
Honestly, I tuned out after you took a shot at
Yeah,
my Titans twice.
I figured you would.
After you took a shot at them twice.
Am I wrong? They're terrible. It's a horrendous organization
They
right
are
now.
bad, but to go back to the broader point, and all jokes aside here, the NFL has kind of been topsy-turvy this year. I'm not surprised the Bears are doing well. Maybe that the Bears are doing this well. I'm not surprised the Patriots are doing well. I'm surprised they're doing this well. I think that's kind of my thing for some of these surprise teams in the NFL. And then, yeah, you got questions like with teams like the Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs are not playing well. Things that you thought you may have known coming into this season, you're maybe a little confused on. And some of the teams that are bad, I don't think we were going to be confused on to begin with. So we're kind of here in this NFL season. It really has been topsy-turvy. And at the end of the day, when we get to the playoffs and some of these teams that we kind of know are more solidified, will they have the advantage? And will some of these teams that are doing really well right now falter? I think those are questions to have, be answered as well. And I don't know. If you ask me right now who's going to win the Super Bowl, I picked before the season the Rams and the Ravens, and I don't think the Ravens will make it there because they've dealt with injuries. I didn't think I would be thinking that the defense would be looking this bad, even though I feel like they have improved. The Rams have been looking spectacular, but then they go lose one to the Panthers. Granted, away game, rain, everything. Who knows what would have happened if things were a little bit different, or if they were hosting a playoff game against a team of the quality against the Panthers. But there are questions to be had. I'm very interested to see how this thing plays out, and when we get to the playoffs, which teams will actually have advantages and which ones are contenders and which ones are pretenders.
There's so much uncertainty this year in the NFL, which makes it a lot of fun if you're not a diehard fan of one of these teams or if you can enjoy both. I think it's interesting because a lot of the really successful teams this season, I don't really trust as far as I can throw them. And I don't mean that as a slight, but I just don't trust the Chicago Bears right now. I don't trust the Denver Broncos. Patriots are building, but do I trust them in an AFC championship game? Not really. So it's just a lot of the successful teams, I think they feel a little bit ahead of schedule, and it's great what Ben Johnson has done with the Bears, but every game they win seems to be this close. Margins, and you're can you actually, and the Broncos as well, can you actually sustain that through and into the postseason? I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Good that they're doing as good as they are, but contenders are pretenders.
As I said in that bit, there are so many more questions than answers in this NFL season. It's made it a lot of fun. Really enjoyed this year. Hopefully some parity, which is needed because I'm tired of watching the Eagles and Chiefs happens this season. Can the Lions get it straight? Who knows? All those questions come up this year. Let's move on to football, the other style of football, where it was a bitter end to an incredible inaugural season for San Diego Football Club. In my opinion, and I understand what happened with the Chicago Fire, in my opinion, the greatest inaugural season in the history of MLS when you consider how good the league has gotten, how many teams there are this day and age, the fact that SDFC pulled off what they did, just spectacular. Went out, unfortunately, with a clunker against Vancouver. I think there's a lot of reasons they lost this game. Karthik, you and I have talked off camera many times, and I think anyone that watches soccer knows, the back line, the youth in that back line, they just got worked by the Whitecaps. Chucky Lozano being on the bench, yes, it's been discussed a lot. Is it the reason they didn't beat Vancouver? I kind of doubt it, but you really never know. Mikey was sticking with what he knew. If you can kind of summarize the season and this disappointing finish against Vancouver. You were down there, you were there around the team, you talked to him afterwards, you kind of really were able to soak all this up, Karthik.
Yeah, I agree with your sentiment that it's the best inaugural season. Not only, the Chicago Fire both making it to their conference final in their first season, but most wins and points in a season by an expansion team. What San Diego FC did was awesome, and nobody can take that away from them, and even the team said that, because of everything that they did accomplish and what they did for the city and the belief. And I talked about it earlier, the hype and just the fans that really drew into this team because of everything that they accomplished and what they made people believe they could accomplish, which was win the whole darn thing, which is crazy to think in the inaugural season that they were a serious contender for this. Against Vancouver, they ran into a team that was just playing extremely well. I watched that match against LAFC, and that match was back and forth, and I was like, these look like serious contenders that could take down San Diego FC as well. And we saw LAFC play some great matches with San Diego FC, and that been the matchup too. And I think it would have came down to the wire. I thought this match was going to be close. San Diego FC was favored by, I think, 0.5 goals. So one goal, winner take, and this was going to be a close match from the end. Vancouver looked more seasoned when it came down to it, and that's why they were able to come out and really attack and strike early and get those goals, and then add another one in stoppage time of the first half that really put this match away. The Chucky Lozano thing, I understand why people would love to have seen him in the starting lineup. I think he obviously brings so much dynamic ability for San Diego FC when he's in, mostly with his scoring, but also with his passing ability when he is finding guys. But, all in all said, I do think, once again, Mikey, went through the playoffs knowing that those guys were getting the job done. We saw Corey Baird come up with an incredible assist against Minnesota United that you can say, would Chucky have not if he's put in that position, which he subbed in for Corey before, or if, Amal was there or whatever. But Corey also, in the starting lineup, came up with a major time assist. Amal Pellegrino in his position coming off the left wing was phenomenal in scoring goals and had an unbelievable stretch, making it look like, okay, well, you don't need a guy like Milan Alowski if you got a guy like Amal Pellegrino doing what he's doing at the age of 35 or whatever he is. And it was just incredible to see what they were to accomplish with no matter who they put in. And I think that was the really cool thing about this team when it's all said and done. So many different guys. Corey Baird and Amal Pellegrino were guys that they picked up late in the season, plugged them into their starting lineup, and still made it to their conference final. Just the scheme and what they were able to do with this team, playing such young backs on the defensive line, guys that are getting their first start in the MLS, guys that are in the 18 to 20-year-old range, just competing every single day to help this team make it to a conference final. And then you have an MVP-type candidate player in Anders Dreyer, who was absolutely phenomenal as well. Just everything about this team was so magical that they were able to make it to a conference final, and I know the ending result is difficult. And, I don't know. They would have gone up against a tough Inter Miami team, and Lionel Messi would have had probably his way with that back line to some extent, where how young they were, and him being the greatest soccer player of all time. There's so many things and so many ways you can look at this, but I think the one that we should be talking about most is how awesome this season was, and I can't wait for next season already.
Yeah, you, me, and all of SDFC had to cancel our flights to Miami. We were ready to rock and roll. In an unbelievable season, we got to fall in love with a bunch of new faces, new players, a crowd. It was just something that was super, super special. And now the key for SDFC is sustainability. In a league that is really hard to have sustainability in, how does San Diego Football Club continue their winning ways, continue to be a playoff team year in and year out? Again, in a league that's very challenging to do so, we shall see. Year one in the books for San Diego Football Club. Now it's on Tyler Heaps, Mikey Varas to keep that winning up and to keep your really good players on your roster. Some interesting words from Anders Dreyer after the season. And let's also hear from Mikey Varas. Here are those two.
I have 2 more years in San Diego. I signed 3 years. But I always learned also in football, you never say never. So we don't know what will happen, and I don't know what will happen. And of course, it's a bigger decision. It's not only me; it's the club and what they want. So I think now I'm gonna enjoy a little bit of a rest, and then of course in a week or two I'm gonna start thinking about football again. So yeah, we'll see what will happen.
You can tell how every morning everybody embraces each other. That there's a real feeling of care there. But what I can say is you just have to see how Frontera embraced us after a tough loss. And I think it says it all right there. Something is developing here that's beyond sport. It's passion, it's compassion, it's love, it's care, it's competitiveness, and it's a reflection of the whole city. And I can't wait to see how all of that continues to develop.
Yeah, it's going to be special to see where this club goes moving forward. Now, you heard Anders Dreyer. I don't know if I'd call it wishy-washy. He was directly asked whether he was going to stay or not. You heard his answer saying that, you never say never. Chucky Lozano said never, by the way. He was asked the same question. He said, I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here in San Diego. Special season, Karthik, special season.
Yeah, for sure. And touching on Dreyer real quick, he might get, Tyler Heaps said that they hadn't received any sort of offers, but, if a team in the Bundesliga or something comes calling for a guy like Anders Dreyer, he might want to listen. And I thought what was also interesting from Tyler Heaps, the general manager, sporting director, he said none of the players are quote-unquote untouchable on the team, so they would be fielding offers if those came in. He did say that none at the time in which he did. And then you got to figure out what some of these other pieces like Anibal Godoy, Omni Valakari, Amal Pellegrino, is a guy. Luca De La Torre is a guy who's now negotiating outside of his loans. So what are those pieces going to be looking like going into next year?
It's like Tyler Heaps took a page out of A.J. Preller's book. Always listen and react after that. Speaking of A.J. Preller, let's quickly just talk about the Padres. Just real briefly, the winter meetings begin on Monday out in Orlando. I don't know if there's any big expectations for the Padres at these winter meetings. There's so much stuff flying around right now as far as a possible sale. Craig Stammen just getting in there. Any expectations at the winter meetings for you, Karthik?
Yeah, I don't know. How much are they going to be able to wheel and deal? What kind of conversations are they really going to have? They've kind of, I don't want to say sold the whole farm system, but they've sold a pretty good amount of it. It'll be interesting to see. Last year's winter meetings weren't like a huge splash. I don't think it'll be a huge splash again. I think they're just going to have to figure out how they plug and play. But obviously, Jake, the big one going into me for this year, we were talking about all the things last season, left field, catcher, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The rotation's got to be built up coming into this year. It's going to be, now that you don't have Yu Darvish for the season anymore either, Dylan Cease already signed with the Blue Jays. Yeah, what's going to happen with the starting rotation?
Michael King's probably as good as gone, to be honest.
You got to figure out. And Joe Musgrove's going to be coming off of injury. Nick Pivetta, is he going to have as good of a year as he did this year? So many questions.
Yeah.
So many questions, and that could be the scariest part of the Padres going into next year, and they've got a lot to figure out there.
And if we're asking these questions just as two yapping heads on television, A.J. Preller is thinking about it. We'll see. As a guy who tends to make moves at the winter meetings, or at least stir up a lot of rumors, we'll see if it happens this time around. There's already rumors flying around Jake Cronenworth and a couple other players on the Padres, but we shall wait and see as this next era of Padres baseball gets set to begin. For now, I'm Jake Guriani. That is Karthik Venkatraman. As always, we appreciate you joining us on CBS 8+. And Karthik will send you off. As I say, we will see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
It's always a pleasure.